Okay.
I see we have 7 people in the waiting room at this point.
Yes, I've got my guy on as one of
2, 1, go live. Good evening, I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and I want to welcome you to our September 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Brighton Town Board. I want to start by noting the obvious. This meeting is being conducted on Zoom rather than in person. Earlier this month, in recognition of the impact of the Delta variant, Governor Hochul signed legislation that restored the ability of government bodies to hold their official meetings remotely. In light of the relatively large crowds that we've been seeing at our live town board meetings, but even more importantly, and I can't stress this enough, in light of the antiquated and poorly functioning HVAC system in Town Hall, particularly in our main Town Hall meeting room, I made the decision to utilize the restored law allowing remote meetings, and we will be doing so at least through the end of 2021. Throughout the pandemic, I've been cognizant of the need to protect the health of town residents and town staff. In light of the spread of the Delta variant and the condition of the HVAC system, it would not be responsible to needlessly convene meetings in the town hall auditorium at this time. I will let everyone know, many of you do know this, but we are in the process of getting proposals for a study of the HVAC needs and related needs of this building. It's something we have moved up and made an important part of our short-term capital planning. We will be beginning the open forum portion of our meeting very shortly, when members of the public will have the opportunity to share their comments with the town board. Those of you that do wish to speak during the open forum, you'll be asked to raise your hand. At least on a computer, I believe you can do so by right-clicking on your name. When it will be your turn to speak, you will be unmuted by the host. You'll have the opportunity to speak, and then you will again be muted after speaking. We also have a public hearing tonight. Yes, thank you, Bridget. Everyone, please turn off your video if you're not a member of the board or staff. It looks like everybody has, but we will be holding a public hearing tonight on a local law during the business portion of the meeting. And people that are interested in participating in that public hearing will be handled the same way. You will be able to raise your hand. You'll be allowed to speak in turn. That is a public hearing on proposed revisions to the town's communications law. As we have throughout, well, for many years now, we will continue to make our meetings accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing community with our ASL interpreters. Tonight, our interpreters are Heather Barzinski and Allie Foey. Thank you, Heather and Allie. Earlier today, we became aware that our web host, Civic Plus, was the subject of what I believe is called a DDoS cyber attack that made it impossible for us to post our agenda and the materials, the backup materials. If we're able to do that, we will try to. But in the meantime, I will describe each action coming before us in a little bit more detail than I normally do. I'll ask that we start the meeting with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have a proclamation tonight. Okay, sorry. National Hispanic Heritage Month begins each year on September 15th. As I read the proclamation, you will understand better why it is that it starts on September 15th of each year. And I will read that proclamation now. Whereas each year Americans observe National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th by celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of American citizens who trace their roots back to Spain, Mexico, the Spanish-speaking nations of the Caribbean, and Central and South America. And whereas September 15th is a significant date because it is the anniversary of independence for the countries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, while September 16th and 18th mark the independence days of Mexico and Chile, respectively. And whereas this year's Heritage Month theme of Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope, invites us to celebrate Hispanic heritage and to reflect on how great tomorrow can be if we hold on to our resilience and our hope. And remember that even in the midst of a pandemic, we are stronger together. And with hope, we are never alone. Whereas today, 60.6 million people of Hispanic heritage live in the United States, making our nation home to the second largest population of Hispanic people in the world, second only to Mexico. And whereas Hispanic heritage is rich and captures the traditions and histories of numerous Spanish-speaking countries, joining together a large and diverse group of people with shared cultural elements who have made important contributions to American culture. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, on behalf of all the members of our Brighton Town Council, do hereby recognize September 15th through October 15th, 2021, as National Hispanic Heritage Month in the town of Brighton, and invite our residents to explore the great variety of people, places, and traditions that comprise Hispanic heritage. This proclamation is signed today, the 22nd day of September, 2021. And there is no better way to celebrate the wonderful and diverse cultural heritage of our Hispanic communities than this Sunday at the Memorial Art Gallery. Each year, the MAG hosts Hispanic Heritage Celebration Day. And each year, a different Hispanic culture is selected as the primary culture which is celebrated that day, although many Hispanic cultures will be celebrated. But that event is being held this Sunday, September 26th, from noon until 5 p.m. You can sign up. Tickets are free. You can sign up online at the MAG's website, which is mag.rochester.edu/Family Day. You can also link to that on the MAG Facebook page. They suggest a donation of $5 per group. I'll show the poster here again. I've been to Hispanic Heritage Day at the MAG a number of times. It is a wonderful day full of art, dance, food, culture. So I very, very strongly encourage folks, as part of your own personal opportunity to learn more about Hispanic heritage and culture, to come to the MAG this Sunday. That admission ticket does get you admission to the entire museum as well. So on Monday night, I attended a meeting held by the New York State Canal Corporation and the New York Power Authority that was held at the Parrington Community Center. The purpose of this meeting, and there were 4 meetings held, one in the afternoon and one in the evening, both Monday and Tuesday. The purpose of the meeting, as indicated by the Canal Corp and the Power Authority, was to receive input on a new draft guidebook being considered by the state relating to the clear cutting of trees along Erie Canal embankments. Now, if that sounds familiar, you're right, because 3-4 years ago, the towns of Brighton, Pittsford, and Parrington sued the Canal Corporation and the Power Authority, I believe we named them both, over an earlier version of this plan, because the state had failed to give that plan a proper environmental review under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQR. The state Supreme Court here in Monroe County ruled in favor of the 3 towns, held that the Canal Corporation and the Power Authority had in fact failed to follow SEQR and blocked the state from proceeding to clear any more trees. The state chose not to appeal that decision. I believe they recognized that, in fact, they had not complied with the requirements of SEQR. Now, although at the time we challenged their plan on procedural grounds, we also made it very clear to the state that we objected to the substance of the project as a whole. Clear cutting trees along the canal would have a profoundly detrimental effect on the canal, on recreational uses along the canal, on the economic benefits to canal communities that those recreational activities provide. It would have a profoundly detrimental impact on wildlife habitat and on the environment. We know how important trees are in pulling carbon out of the air. Cutting thousands, and I do mean thousands, of trees along the canal would clearly have a broad detrimental effect. Unfortunately, now, 3 years later, the state has gone public with plans to proceed with almost the same plan with some very minor changes. But the plan is to clear cut trees along miles of the canal, as well as some of the feeder canals, the Champlain Canal and others, between Buffalo and Albany. Most of those clear cuttings would be here in Western New York and in the Finger Lakes. One thing that has not changed since 3 years ago, and the state made no bones about it, they admitted it. There is absolutely no evidence that trees or tree roots weaken canal embankments. There has never been an Erie Canal failure shown to be caused by trees or tree roots. There have been several canal embankment failures shown to be caused by human activity. And as you can imagine, this clear cutting of trees and whatever comes next is going to involve heavy equipment, a lot of activity on the canal. In other words, the kind of human activity that we don't know will be detrimental to the canal. Now, as I mentioned, I attended the Canal Corporation's public meeting held Monday night. Supervisor Bill Smith from Pittsford spoke at last night's meeting. I spoke at Monday night's meeting. In each case, expressing our objections, that we still object to this plan. Before these meetings, we reached out to our state elected representatives. I saw today correspondence that was written by several of those local state representatives. And we will be communicating directly with Governor Hochul's office, expressing our objections with this plan. We also plan to submit formal comments to the seeker environmental review of the project. And I want to encourage everybody watching tonight to go to the Canal Corporation website, look at their project, look at this guidebook, and if you find the project as objectionable as I do, and I believe my colleagues do, I would encourage you also to submit comments. Over 600 people already have done so. It is my fervent hope that as the state sees all of these comments, both formal to the seeker review and informal at these public meetings the last 2 nights, I hope the state will think better of the plan and work with local municipalities and canal users to develop a much more limited plan, a plan that better balances the legitimate need for embankment safety, although again, we know that trees and tree roots do not undermine the embankment, but one that balances safety with the many benefits of canal recreational use, the benefits of habitat for species, the environmental benefits of trees, etc. If we're not, we tried last time, it didn't work. And if we're not successful this time, we will have to examine what our alternatives are. I will also be asking the canal representatives to schedule additional meetings. Those meetings last night and the night before were only in Perrington. 3+ years ago, they also held meetings in Brighton and I believe in other canal communities, and I will ask them to do that as well. Next, I want to talk briefly about our recreation survey. At our last town board meeting, I spoke about our plans to survey the community. I see Robin smiling because I'm sure you're going to be talking about this again, Robin, in your community services report. But it's really one of those things we can't talk about enough because we want your input. We want to know what you think about your preferences for recreational needs, recreational facilities, and community center facilities here in Brighton. That survey is now live. There's a link to it in the recreation newsletter that you would have received in the mail if you live in Brighton. But there's also a link on the town's webpage. We will take your comments. The consultant, SWBR, will take your comments into account as together we move forward, planning Parks and Recreation programming going forward and Parks and Recreation facilities. As I said last time, in the meantime, just as we have done throughout the COVID pandemic, we will continue to provide recreation and community service programs at Brookside and elsewhere to the extent that we can do so safely under the public health guidelines. We will now begin our open forum, which we hold at the beginning of every town board meeting. Again, if you would like to speak during the open forum and you're on the Zoom meeting, please raise your hand. The host will admit you into the meeting. If you are watching us on the live stream, I would encourage you and you'd like to speak, again, please join the Zoom meeting and you will have the opportunity to speak. I do ask, particularly since we are on Zoom, that you would state your name and address for the record. I will ask all speakers to limit your remarks to 3 minutes. I will give you a 30-second warning before your time is going to expire. Our goal here tonight and during the open forum that we hold at every town board meeting is to give you the opportunity to share your thoughts with us and for us to be able to listen to your words. Therefore, I do, as you know, we will not be responding to questions during this forum. And we would again ask, as always, that you direct your remarks to the town board and not to other speakers. And I very much want to remind all of our speakers that they need to maintain decorum in your remarks. We will not tolerate yelling or other outbursts in your remarks. So I will invite the first speaker, who I believe is Mr. Gluck, to begin. Mr. Gluck, please address.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Isaiah 62:1, for Zion's sake, I will not keep silent, and for Jerusalem's sake, I will not keep still. Mr. Melee, last meeting, when announcing the Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Awareness Month, you stated the first 3 months when the brain develops is a critical time of fetal development. Fact, Planned Parenthood in Brighton will perform late-term partial birth abortions. This procedure involves pulling the baby out with forceps, except for the head, then stabbing the base of the skull with scissors, and then using a catheter to evacuate the brain. Brains that are maturing are destroyed not by alcohol, but by Planned Parenthood and then sold for profit for experimentation. We are all concerned about the harmful effect of alcohol on a baby's brain, but shamefully, you don't seem to be concerned about the effect that a scissor has on a baby's brain. As you stated, Mr. Melee, that you were pleased with the planning board's approval of Planned Parenthood. There's been a lot of talk recently about pledges. Your pledge states, harsh and false words shared between our neighbors and our friends only cause pain and division and wound all of us as a community. I agree. Bill Melee, you stated, and I quote, we reject all efforts to divide the community and the use of fear to divide neighbor to neighbor. On May 20th, Robin Wilt was a vocal and active participant of an anti-Israel and anti-America rally. The rally was filled with hate speech, division, and lies, all of which violates your pledge. Here are just a few harsh and false anti-Israel and anti-American quotes. And I quote, these are from the rally that Robin Wilt attended. Israel is conducting illegal settlement, expansion, and outright genocide. Lie. Israel is committing crimes against humanity.Lie. Israel is an apartheid state and conducting the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Lie. Police in the United States protect white supremacists. Lie. Zionists are just as bad as white supremacists. Lie.
30 seconds, Mr. Gluck.
Yes. Did you rebuke any of these vitriolic statements? Robin Wilt's own comments against Israel was, we have a special responsibility to stand up against the oppression, division. She ended her comments by raising her clenched fist and stating, free Palestine. She stood and she clapped when the chant was down, down with Israel. Why don't you call that out? Are you all afraid of being called racist? Why are you being cowards? Why don't you hold her accountable to your pledge?
Time, Mr. Gluck. Thank you. Our next speaker, I'm not sure who's now been led into the room, but whoever has just been led into the room, please go ahead.
I'm not sure, is that?
Yes,
it's-
we can hear you, yes.
Oh, all right, great. I wasn't sure if it was me.
Yeah.
You were talking tonight about the
If you would,
broad.
if you don't mind stating your name and address, please.
I will state my name. It's Dorothy Hayes, but I would prefer not to
That's
give
fine.
address.
That's fine.
Since I've had a couple of threats, so I don't want to have my address out
No
there.
problem.
I am not, you were talking tonight about broad detrimental effect of removing trees. And I'd like tonight to call your attention to the broad detrimental effect of Planned Parenthood will have on women and children in our community. Abortion isn't healthcare, and it can't be equated to a pap smear. Abortion is the violent killing of a child, a human being. Science and reason support this. Throughout history, when we have wanted to take advantage or obliterate a group of people, we first dehumanize them. Abortion necessitates the dehumanization of a person so we can justify killing it. But you know that. When you dehumanize anyone, you dehumanize all of us, but you know that too. However, there's an insidious corollary to this action. Abortion doesn't only affect the mother and her child, it also affects the abortionist and the people and systems that support this violent act. They not only dehumanize the infant, they dehumanize their mothers, and as a pro-lifer, they dehumanize me. The most recent example is Morse Wortman, a Brighton abortionist who's being sued for using his own sperm in his fertility treatments without informing the patient. The DNA supports this sad, disgusting accusation. And I'd like to note that Brave, Brighton Residents Against Violence, was prophetic in their opposition to his moving into Brighton. Unfortunately, Wortman isn't an aberration. Kermit Gosnell, the Philadelphia abortionist who in 2011 was convicted of the murder of 7 viable infants he killed after they were born alive during their attempted abortions, and of involuntary manslaughter for the death of one of his patients. After abortion, Ulrich Kulfer died in 2019. The remains of 2,411 aborted fetuses were found stashed in his garage and Mercedes. Additionally, he admitted performing an abortion on a 10-year-old girl who had been raped by her uncle. He never reported the crime to authorities. And these are some of the exactly the same things that that Planned Parenthood has been accused of. Abortionist Brian Finkel is serving 35 years for sexually abusing patients at the abortion clinic he referred to as the
30
vagina
seconds, please.
hall. It's a dark and violent business that you're allowing into your town. You've turned a blind eye to Planned Parenthood because they have slick marketing and stood up there and had the nerve to say they're not an abortion clinic. Planned Parenthood lied to you. I'm not surprised. It goes with the territory. But please don't neglect your responsibility to the truth, to Brighton, and to the women who will be coming here. Thank you.
And again, I won't necessarily see that you've been unmuted, but our next speaker can begin. Yes, someone has been unmuted. I cannot hear. If someone's trying to speak, I cannot hear you. Still can't hear. I can barely hear a voice.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. My name is Deanna Joy. I'm a co-director of the Sidewalk Ministry team, Rock, Love, Will End Abortion. I am also an educator, certified educator, and I'm a current resident of the city of Rochester. I'm just going to read a story here. A former Planned Parenthood director and whistleblower said she now knows the truth that abortion is the death penalty for unborn babies. Mayra Rodriguez, who won a lawsuit against Planned Parenthood in 2019 under the Whistleblower Protection Act, shared her story recently at the Democrats for Life conference in Columbus, Ohio. Rodriguez worked at Planned Parenthood for 16 years and eventually became the director of its largest abortion facility in Arizona. She even won Employee of the Year. But today, she is a pro-life advocate who is working to expose Planned Parenthood's horrendous practices to the world. It takes, this is a quote, it takes about 15 to 26 minutes for an abortion, Rodriguez said, according to the report. Quote, they suffocate unborn babies and they also inject a saline solution into their heart until their heart stops for 24 hours before they pull them out piece by piece, end quote. So it is a death penalty to the unborn, she continued. Her report states the following. I noticed all the atrocities. I noticed the irregularities. I noticed the malpractice. I noticed all the stuff the abortionists, Planned Parenthood hide from people, and I complained about it. That got me fired. Rodriguez eventually was victorious. In 2019, a court awarded her $3 million in a wrongful termination lawsuit. I did have copies of the story that I would have passed out if we were face to face, but I'm just going to continue. After leaving the abortion chain, Rodriguez connected with
30
and
seconds.
then there were none. This is an organization that former Planned Parenthood director Abby Johnson began in order to help abortion workers quit. You all may have seen the movie Unplanned. It is the story of Abby Johnson. As of the beginning of this year, and then there were none, has assisted over 600 people leave the abortion industry. Myra Rodriguez says, we need to stop the business of Planned Parenthood. And I say, we have to stop it in Brighton. Thanks very much. Have a great night. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Bill Keenan from Webster. I'd like to follow up with what Dorothy and Deanna had just mentioned and Mr. Gluck. I know that there's a big push in Brighton to open this new Planned Parenthood facility. And maybe you've heard already, but there are at least 15 other facilities in the area that provide the exact same services Planned Parenthood does, except for abortion, killing children. And many of these are programs such as Compass Care and Focus Pregnancy Center and the Women's Care Center, where my wife volunteers, that will bend over backwards to provide whatever support a mother and a young father will need in order to raise the child or place them for adoption. I want to mention too that we often get a lot of pushback saying, well, the pro-life community doesn't support these young mothers. We need to have abortion. And that's definitely not true in the Rochester community. My sister and about 10 other women run a mom and baby program where if we know of a woman who wants to keep her baby, but has no support, is in an abusive relationship, they find apartments for them. They host baby showers that get sold out within minutes on Amazon. They provide diapers, whatever a woman needs, and after the baby's born as well. So just wanted you to know that there is support out there. If you feel there's a real need for Planned Parenthood to come to the community, there isn't a great need. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
This is James Appel. I'm 35.
Mr. Apple, your voice sounds 2 octaves high.
Well, I don't know what I can do about that. Is that make it?
No, it's like we're listening to a 33 record at 78 speed, for those of us old enough to remember those things.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but we can't make out your words. You literally sound, something is causing your voice to be 2 octaves high and very squeaky.
Okay, well, if you can't hear me, I will sign off and ask whoever's doing the technical stuff.
Maybe you can log back in and we'll give you another chance to speak.
Okay, thank you, if you can hear me.
Thank you. We'll have our next speaker then.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi, can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hi, this is Cecilia Lester. I'm a Brighton resident. I'd like to say that I'm thankful that the board opposes objectionable projects that destroy life. And with that in mind, I'd like to comment on Planned Parenthood in Brighton and its relationship to the recent news of local longtime abortion provider Morris Wortman's behavior. I'm disgusted, certainly, but not surprised by the recent allegations that Wortman impregnated patients with his own sperm. A man who makes a living playing God, deciding who lives and who dies, already has a perverted and disturbed understanding of his place in this world. I would remind the board that Brighton welcomed this predator here over 20 years ago, knowing full well that he was in the business of dismembering little children, and despite fervent public outcry. The same outspoken Brightonians who warned town leadership about Wortman 20 years ago beg you now not to grant sanctuary to Planned Parenthood and the men and women who also enabled this killing. In addition, I recommend an article by Adam J. McLeod. It's written a few weeks ago. McLeod's a professor of law at Faulkner University, and he astutely summarizes how Roe v. Wade did not actually convey any new rights on women, but rather on abortion providers. Quote, the Texas statute challenged in Roe did not impose criminal sanctions on women seeking abortions. Rather, like nearly all pro-life laws, it applied to those who perform abortions and those who pressure women to have abortions. The holding in Roe thus conferred a new privilege on abortionists and pushy boyfriends, or anyone else who might coerce a woman into abortion. In strictly legal terms, women gain no new liberties from the holding. Among the rights bestowed to abortion providers by Roe was to render abortionists exempt from a requirement that they hold local hospital admitting privileges, which is, quote, a status through which the medical profession regulates itself, holds members accountable to basic standards of care, and protects patients who are in need, end quote. If Morris Wortman's practice had been subjected to the same medical standards as other healthcare facilities, would his behavior have gone unsupervised, thus enabling his alleged abuse of patients? Doesn't our town bear responsibility for the evil Wortman has committed by providing safe haven for a man known from the very beginning not to respect human life?
30 seconds.
Will we not also be responsible for harms brought to residents and visitors to our town and their children by granting full access to a highly unregulated industry that believes human life has no inherent value? Brighton has been on the wrong side of history of abortion in America. There's still time to make things right. Please oppose the new Brighton Planned Parenthood abortion facility with us. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hi, this is James Appel.
Now we can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you for being so patient with the technology. So I just want to read something that follows up on what happened maybe the last board meeting or possibly 2 board meetings ago. And I started to say before, but you didn't hear me. I've been a Brighton resident for 35 years. And my physical home, but recently my spiritual home moved to Brighton, that I am the rabbi at Congregation Shema Israel on Edgewood Avenue, where we just moved there about 8 months ago. So I just wanted to follow up on the reports that have been given previously about Planned Parenthood violating laws and getting into trouble, and to help everybody to understand that this is a pattern. So I'm just going to read this report. A Planned Parenthood counselor in Arizona intentionally miscoded a sexual assault as a consensual encounter to avoid the, quote, hassle of reporting it to authorities months before other victims came forward to stop an alleged 18-year-old sex predator, a police report reveals. Tyler Kloss of Santan Valley, Arizona, has been charged with sexually assaulting 11 girls from the ages of 12 to 17. Although authorities believe he has assaulted at least 18 students from Poston Butte High School. The mother of one 15-year-old victim who became pregnant as a result of the alleged assault told a Planned Parenthood Arizona staffer about the attack. This was reported by a Pinal County Sheriff's Office. The counselor, quote, intentionally miscoded the assault as a consensual encounter. Hang on a second. As a consensual encounter. The report states the counselor told them they did not want the hassle of having to report the assault to law enforcement as they were a mandatory reporter. This took place in Arizona. And last week it was reported that Sue Thayer, a former Planned Parenthood manager of Storm Lake, Iowa, stated that, quote, we were all required to be mandatory reporters, but we really were discouraged from calling it in just because they didn't want to have this trouble. Again, this is a systemic problem with the culture of Planned Parenthood. So as was stated last time, and as I hope all of you are hearing, this is not an organization that I would want to see in our town.
30 seconds, please.
Even if they were following all the rules that have been laid down, I would not want to see it. But there is a great deal of evidence and records that they don't follow the rules that have been given to them, and they're thereby just plain not law-abiding. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Am I on?
Yes.
Hi, my name is John Gramlich. So I work with Caring Choices Pregnancy Help Center. I heard Bill Keenan voice a number of the other help centers or pregnancy centers in Rochester earlier. At Caring Choices, we have 2 locations, one downtown and one in Webster. And just to reinforce what Bill had stated, pre-COVID, we saw over 600 people in the year before COVID. This year, we've already had 400 client visits where we provide diapers, clothing, we provide formula, we provide counseling, all so that women will not have to go to Planned Parenthood. One of the fallacies that Planned Parenthood endlessly portrays is that we only care about the life of the child. To be quite honest, when we counsel, the focus that we have is on the mother and on the father. We counsel both men and women, and our counseling is for them first, and it's for that child second. We want them to have the understanding of what an abundant life it is in being a parent. Planned Parenthood does not do that counseling, and often, to be quite honest, we get people from Planned Parenthood who go to Planned Parenthood for services that aren't given to them because they're not going to abort. But one of the key things that I want to talk about, although all those are very important, is our post-abortion counseling. Every year we counsel close to a dozen women, and we've been in existence for 15 years, and men that are going through post-abortion counseling. And often they don't come to us until 15 to 20 years after their abortion, and it has wreaked havoc in their life. Similar symptoms as post-traumatic stress. Often alcoholism, anger, violence, those types of things have manifested themselves into their family of the children that they did have. Inabilities to parent correctly, often erring on either one side or the other, where they're disenfranchised from that child because they haven't nurtured the previous child. And so we have seen restoration from that, but it is often far later in life. And the fallacy of aborting a child fixes the problem is just that, a fallacy.
30 seconds.
Because the impact on the mom and dads is for a lifetime. So I would just ask you to reconsider. I do want to say that I think Brighton has done a phenomenal job of hearing out people on this issue, but I hope it's not just listening and hearing out the statements. It's taking to heart every word that's spoken. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hey, hello everybody. I'm Quavis. Y'all can hear me?
Yes.
Hey, like I said last week, I run a not-for-profit organization called Go Ministries. I work with at-risk youth. Been doing it going on my 10th year in October. And one of the things I like doing is giving them an experience, right? So we do college tours and things like that. But the biggest thing I like doing is taking them to the neighborhoods where all the big houses are at. You know, like Ambassador Drive and Clover Street. We do these open houses and we'd be amazed at these houses. And I always tell them, I said, you want to know what's crazy about these homeowners? They said, what? I said, at one point, they couldn't afford it. It was just like you. So I like giving them that hope. I like giving them that seed. So when they think about the youth group, they can remember something hopeful about it. I say all that to say, you know, Brighton, you know, creating the Planned Parenthood, because a lot of people from the city, from the outside will be coming in. And you got to ask yourself as a town is, what do you want your city to be known for? Now, growing up in the city, one thing we know places by their landmarks. Like we may say, oh, out in Greece. Oh, you mean by the mall, or out in Henrietta, or by the movie theater? So do you want them to say, oh yeah, meet me out in Brighton, where? By the Planned Parenthood? What do you want people to say when they think about the town of Brighton, the town that's divided between Muslim and Jews and liberal and conservatives? Right now, you guys got a decision to say, hey, do I want my town connected to some of these stories? Now, what's the chances of these stories happening? We're saying to ourselves, I don't know, probably 10%. But the simple fact that it can happen is enough to say, maybe we should hold back. You don't want this town to be remembered as a place where a baby can be murdered at. And just like the young man said earlier, is that there's a bunch of places around that area where you can get things done. If you are a pregnant woman, you can get the assistance that you need. So I'm saying, you guys, what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want people to say about you? A place where you can get Planned Parenthood at, a place that's divided, or a place that stood their ground? Personally, when I take my wife and kids down Brandywine and Lac DeVille, I think it's beautiful over there. So when I bring my youth group kids out there, I want them to know that it's a place where you can own a home, where you have a voice, where things won't be done behind nobody's back. I wouldn't want it to be known as a place where you can just go get babies aborted. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, members of the Town of Brighton Planning Board, and thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Autumn Kramer.
Let me just clarify, this is not the planning board, this is the Brighton Town Board.
Yes. My name is Autumn Kramer, and I'm the Students for Life Abortion-Free Cities Rochester community organizer. We stand together today to express our opposition for the initial plan to have another potential abortion facility to be built in the town of Brighton. Students for Life has serious concerns about the abortion industry controversy that is sweeping across the state of New York. Planned Parenthood commits 354,871 abortions a year in the United States, according to their public 2020 annual report found on their website. This is 972 abortions committed each day, 41 per hour, one baby killed every 89 seconds. We are here to speak for our community and our generation, having lost 1 in 4 members to abortion. And now we face constant pressure to accept abortion as a solution instead of the violent, devastating problem that it is. As you are all aware, Planned Parenthood is seeking to establish a new abortion facility in the Westfall Medical Park, less than 5 miles away from the existing Planned Parenthood on University Avenue. We want the community of Brighton to remain safe. Under the New York Reproductive Health Act of 2019, non-physicians can perform an abortion. Beyond that, New York State health inspections on abortion facilities are extremely behind, and the information is almost impossible to get a hold of. Planned Parenthood is also currently under federal investigation for the procurement and research involving fetal trafficking of children killed in late-term abortions. Do we want yet another dangerous lack of transparency added into our community? No, we don't need another Planned Parenthood in Brighton. Instead, we should be investing in options that actually help women. In its Abortion-Free Cities campaign, Students for Life is seeking to inform communities across the country about the amazing services offered by pregnancy help organizations. We do this by door knocking each month, spreading awareness about the life-affirming, nonviolent resources that are available to women all across the Rochester area. These resources include free pregnancy tests, free ultrasounds, free STD tests, and free pregnancy counseling, all resources that listen to a woman's why instead of using her for a profit. Pregnancy help organizations, in combination with plentiful federally qualified health centers, offer everything that Planned Parenthood does, except abortions, at little to no cost to the patient. Let's not support the corrupted ill intentions of Planned Parenthood, but rather promote and support wonderful pregnancy help organizations in our area that seek to
30 seconds.
invest in the individual and not profit from them. Let us invest in our community and not take away from them. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all, and please support these reasonable concerns we have for Brighton citizens and the future of our community. Thank you.
We don't have anyone else who has raised their hand to speak. If there is anybody else that would like to speak, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we will continue with the business portion of our meeting. Hearing none, then we will continue with the business portion of our meeting. And Chris, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? But you're going to need to, yeah, you go.
You beat me. Yes, Bill, I move that we approve the agenda.
Can I have a second, please?
Second, Christine.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Tonight, the Finance Department and I will present the town's tentative draft budget.
Sir,
we apparently got a hand up, so I will recognize that person who wished to speak. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I am inept. Okay, I don't know if, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Good.
can hear you.
Even though I am inept, you can hear me. My name is Christine Constantine. I've lived in Brighton since I was, well, I won't tell you how old I was. I think it was in 1982. I own a home there. I believe Brighton is a wonderful place to live, or else I wouldn't have chosen it to live there for so long. My remarks are directed to young women, mainly young women, who seem not to understand what is happening in their heads. I want to say to them, look, you do not, and particularly Brighton women, although I hate saying that, but you do not have to abort your child in order to achieve your goals. You do not. It's not, if you think you do, and I believe that many of you think you do, if you do think that, something's very wrong. Not necessarily with you, not at all, but something is very wrong with society, with the government, maybe with your family, maybe, but you need, think about your goals in terms of not letting society, government, family, whatever people want you to do, dictate to you this most important decision in your life. Don't do it. Resist. That's all I have to say.
Yes, I believe we have one more person who has now joined the meeting and has raised their hand. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm a town resident I don't know if you can hear me or not. There's
Yes,
no
we can.
indication.
And if you would, please, would you state your name?
My name is Alexi. So this past week, I've been driving down to drop off my kids at the high school and middle school, and there have been a lot of cops pulling people over on the main roads. I don't have a problem with the cops pulling people over for violations, but move it off the road. Don't make the situation worse. I just don't understand why you wouldn't, if you're going to pull somebody over, wait till they make a turn or somehow get them out of the way so that the other thousands of kids aren't in more danger by these actions. So just move it off the road, off to the side, please. We don't need another kid being nearly run over by a pedestrian, by a motorist on their bike, were they on their bike or they're walking last year. We don't need that happening again. So please take care for our kids. Thanks.
Thank you. Now I do not believe we have any more speakers, so we will continue on with the business portion of the meeting. Tonight, Town of Brighton Finance Director Paula Parker, Assistant Finance Director Suzanne Zaso, and I present the 2022 tentative operating budget for the Town of Brighton to the Brighton community. We are now over 18 months into the COVID crisis, and through it all, I am extremely proud that the Town of Brighton has continued to provide quality services while maintaining our fiscal strength and integrity. Just this week, we learned that the State Comptroller reported that the Town of Brighton has a stronger score on the Comptroller's annual fiscal stress test as of December 31st, 2020, than we have ever had. For that independent indicator of the fiscal strength of the Town of Brighton and the effectiveness of our financial oversight, I'm grateful not only to our finance department team, but to every single member of town staff who have worked hard through often very difficult circumstances to make the needs of Brighton residents their top priority as they do every day. Thank you. Last year, we prepared our tentative budget with very little visibility as to what the future would bring. We anticipated a dramatic loss of revenue due to COVID, particularly sales tax revenue. And while we anticipated that there would be a recovery, but there would still be continuing negative impacts in 2021 and likely beyond. At that time, we had received no pandemic relief, although legislation was pending in Congress. Now, a year later, we have received our first installment of COVID relief under ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, and we anticipate receiving additional funds next year. While we have some priority projects that qualify for funding under the program, particularly, as I mentioned earlier, the installation of a new HVAC system here in Town Hall to replace the antiquated, nearly 70-year-old system in the building when it was first constructed, and that cornerstone was laid in 1953. That will help us protect the safety of our staff and visitors. At this time, we still don't know whether federal infrastructure aid will be approved, but we are confident that we can continue to address some of our important infrastructure needs and identify new ways to enhance Brighton's quality of life, while constantly recognizing equity and inclusion as a core part of our work. We've been successful in meeting our twin goals of maintaining Brighton's fiscal strength and enhancing the quality of life in Brighton. And this tentative operating budget will again do that in 2022. As we always do in this presentation, I want to highlight and provide a brief explanation of the New York State tax cap. The tax cap was enacted in 2012, and while it is sometimes called the 2% tax cap, the actual maximum tax increase is computed for each taxing jurisdiction each year, using a formula that takes into account a number of different factors, including growth in assessed valuation, pension costs, and any amount by which taxes for the prior year fell before the cap. Therefore, the actual tax cap level varies for each municipality and can be greater or less than 2%. In 2022, the town of Brighton tax cap is 2.09%. Each year, we make it a priority to adopt a budget that complies with the tax cap. And the 2022 tentative town budget that we are proposing tonight will again comply with the tax cap. An apples to apples comparison between the 2021 adopted town budget and the 2022 tentative town budget is somewhat difficult because the 2022 budget anticipates that the West Brighton Fire Protection District will essentially be merged with the Henrietta Fire District, and that fire service will be provided in West Brighton by the Henrietta Fire District commencing January 1st, 2022. The property tax levy for the town's operating budget is proposed to increase by $235,050 or 1.49% in 2022. That will be an increase in the tax rate under the operating budget of 8 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation from 2021 to 2022, or $15.90 for a home valued at $200,000. Now, your own tax bill is likely to increase more or less, depending largely on the special districts that you are a part of, that your property is a part of, including things like the sewer districts, water, sidewalk, snow plowing, sidewalk districts, refuse districts, among others, under which the town ensures that only those who receive services, the specific services in question, will have to pay for them. Now, of course, any changes in your assessed value of your property will also affect your personal tax bill. As we do each year, the open and transparent process that the town follows in developing and ultimately approving the town's budget far exceeds the state mandated procedures for budget development and approval. We strive to ensure that the public has access to the budget process each year and the ability to provide input throughout that process. Each year, the development of the town budget begins in the spring when department heads prepare a 3-year capital improvement plan draft for their departments so that we can plan ahead for important town projects and significant capital expenditures. The New York State Controller recommends that municipalities prepare a capital improvement plan, but not everyone does. The town of Brighton does, and it's a way we can plan ahead 3 years out. We do it every year, looking out over that 3-year period to help us plan and fund capital expenditures in advance. The 2022 capital improvement plan was unanimously approved by the town board on September 9th. And it anticipates continued maintenance and improvements to our streets, sidewalks, and sewers, purchases of trucks and other heavy equipment, and technology advances for the town, among other important needs. We talked during that meeting about how we're increasing funding for sidewalks, among other things. Many of these expenditures are funded in some cases by grants. They may be funded by borrowing, often as incentive zoning amenities, but others are directly included in the budget. It's important to stress that the submission of the tentative budget tonight does not end the public review process. In fact, quite the opposite is true. The Finance Committee of the Town Board will review this tentative budget in an open meeting. The Town Board will again hold 2 public hearings to take public comment on this tentative budget on October 13th and October 27th. These hearings will be held remotely as part of regularly scheduled town board meetings on those dates. And I would remind you that the state only requires 1 public hearing, and it allows those public hearings to be held after Election Day. We don't think that's good enough. We think when you go out to vote, and we hope you do, that you know how we have been as your fiscal stewards. You'll be able to, again, watch those meetings or on our cable access channel. And of course, they're live streamed on our YouTube feed. Copies of the tentative operating budget are now available for review in the town clerk's office, the Brighton Memorial Library, and online at www.townofbrighton.org. There are several ways you can submit your comments to this tentative budget. You can do it, of course, at those public hearings, but they can also be submitted by email to the town clerk at daniel.aman, A-M-A-N, at townofbrighton.org, or by mail to Town Clerk Daniel Aman, 2300 Elmwood Avenue, Rochester, 14618. Comments submitted in writing will be included in the public record of those budget public hearings. Because this budget is intended to reflect the needs and the priorities of the Brighton community, we gratefully acknowledge the efforts of the volunteer members of the Brighton Budget Review Task Force and the Sustainability Oversight Committee, both of which are made up of Brighton volunteers who take the time to meet with town staff and review budget and financial matters with an eye towards financial stability and sustainability. Now, as I previously mentioned, independent third-party analysis continues to confirm the fiscal strength of the town of Brighton. I mentioned the comptroller and his fiscal stress monitoring system score is better than they've ever been before for the town of Brighton. Moody's, the national debt rating agency, continues to give Brighton a AA2 credit rating, one of the highest in New York State of local municipalities. And our independent auditor has again found that the financial statements that the town issues each year have been prepared in accordance with the Government Accounting Standards Board requirements. Now that all sounds good, but I think it's important to note the challenges that we face. We continue to see little or no growth in the town's tax base, particularly our commercial tax base. The total taxable assessed valuation of real property in the town of Brighton actually fell very slightly from 2021 to 2022. That's the first time that's happened in quite some time. Maintaining a balance of residential and commercial tax base is important because well-planned commercial development often places less of a burden on local services than residential development does. And it helps shoulder the cost of those services that do benefit residents. The continued frivolous lawsuits brought to try to block the Whole Foods Plaza have not stopped that project from being developed by the developer, but they have slowed it, delayed it significantly. And they continue, those frivolous lawsuits continue to prevent millions of dollars of commercial tax base from being added to the tax rolls. Most recently, Judge Odorizzi rejected 10 requests for injunctions to block this project. People ask me frequently if the litigation is over because they want to see the project move forward. I hear it all the time. Unfortunately, I have to tell them that these secretive groups that are bringing these lawsuits continue to bring new lawsuits, continue to try to get injunctions over and over and over again, pursuing this frivolous strategy, litigation strategy, to the detriment of the Brighton community and Brighton taxpayers. Brighton has been a leader in the entire state of New York in the successful use of incentive zoning, and we will continue to use incentive zoning to ensure that new projects like the Whole Foods project pay full town, county, and school taxes and mitigate any other impacts on the community by providing community amenities. Now, in the case of the Whole Foods Plaza, we've already seen these amenities, millions of dollars worth of amenities The new Auburn Trail, new traffic signals, and service roads that have improved traffic safety and traffic flow along Monroe Avenue. Had the Whole Foods project not been stymied by the years of frivolous litigation, as I mentioned before, the town's assessed valuation and particularly our commercial tax base would have been greater, which would have helped reduce taxes for residential taxpayers, or at least mitigated any increases for those taxpayers. Now, property tax receipts are the largest source of town revenues, but they're not the only source. The town also receives revenues from mortgage and sales taxes, fees for programs and services, cable television franchise fees, among other sources, interest income. Not much of that these days with interest rates as low as they are. But the town of Brighton, like other towns in Monroe County, receives a portion of sales tax revenues generated from retail sales throughout Monroe County under the terms of an agreement among Monroe County, local municipalities, and school districts. Sales tax revenues in Monroe County were severely impacted by COVID in 2020, but have recovered strongly, particularly in the second half of 2021. Given the uncertainty that continues about future impacts of COVID, we are again making conservative estimates of sales tax growth in 2022, although we are currently ahead of our projections for 2021. Mortgage tax revenues, the mortgage tax that is paid anytime a new property is bought with a mortgage or a mortgage is refinanced. Those revenues have been the most volatile source of town funding, tied to the economic and home building cycles, as well as interest rate cycles. Interest rates remain low, and residential property values in particular remain strong. But we will continue to budget conservatively for mortgage tax receipts. Again, in light of potential COVID impacts, as well as the possibility that higher interest rates could adversely affect real estate markets and mortgage markets. Now, of course, the reason that increasing other revenue sources is so important to maintaining the fiscal strength of Brighton is that expenses continue to rise, in many cases at a rate far above the rate of inflation. Again, thanks in part to COVID. We've been living with it. We know the impact that COVID has had in so many ways. Personnel costs are by far the largest expense for the town of Brighton and for most local governments. Wages and salaries have continued to grow, and employee and retiree health insurance programs, over which the town has limited control, may continue to rise even faster. One ray of good news is that the mandated contributions to the state retirement system for town employees, which are set by the state retirement system, and again, that we have no control over, those costs, those mandated contributions will decrease in 2022, due largely to strength in financial markets, the stock market, and other financial markets. The town of Brighton continues to focus on the ways we can cut costs by sharing services with other governmental bodies. We partner with other municipalities as part of the Finger Lakes Municipal Health Insurance Trust, a consortium of municipalities that collectively procure health insurance for member employees and retirees. And we have had success in keeping insurance costs in line. We're also members of the New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal, NYMIR, which we use to obtain property, casualty, and liability insurance. Through these organizations, we not only ensure the availability of insurance coverage, we do so at a cost significantly less than open market rates. Another element of sharing services is that we are in the final stages now of merging the West Brighton Fire Protection District with the Henrietta Fire District, thereby reducing the cost of fire service for residents of West Brighton. The town of Brighton has long partnered with other governmental bodies to provide important services effectively and economically, and we will continue to search for new ways to do so in the future. I want to again thank everyone prepared in the preparation of the tentative budget, particularly, of course, Paula Parker, our Director of Finance, and Suzanne Zaso, our Assistant Director of Finance. Developing the town's budget is never easy, and if you saw the path that Paula wears from her door to my door, you would know how very much engaged and how challenging this process is. This 2022 budget will maintain and in fact enhance municipal services. At the same time, we will be finding new ways to control the cost of government. We sincerely look forward to your input during the 2 budget hearings in October, and we appreciate the efforts of every community volunteer and town staff member who assisted in the preparation of this budget. Thank you very much. This letter is signed again by myself, but also by the Director and the Assistant Director of Finance. Now we'll proceed with the one public hearing we have tonight. And again, as I noted, we will try to discuss a little bit more detail because we know many of you are not able to see this agenda tonight because of the computer hack on our website host. But the public hearing tonight concerns proposed amendments to the town's comprehensive development regulations related to telecommunications. There are items of communication dated in June and September from Ramsey Boehner, the town planner, and the planning board executive secretary. And I will ask the town clerk, has the necessary legal notice been given with respect to this public hearing?
This hearing's moved around a couple of times, so it's actually, notice has been published 3 times, but the one that is legally binding for this one was in the September 18th edition of the Democrat and Chronicle.
And I know posted as well. Thank you. I'm going to ask, I think I'm going to ask Ken Gordon, the town attorney, to start with the summary and some explanation about, oh, by the way, let me just be clear. The public hearing notice having been given, the public hearing is now in session on this local law. And now I will ask the town attorney, Ken Gordon, to give us a summary of the law and whatever other information necessary. Ken.
Thank you, Supervisor. So the town has had on its books for quite some time a set of code provisions dealing with cell towers. And with the advent of new technology, particularly 5G technology, the federal government has enacted some new laws and regulations because those new communication facilities are different than the large cell towers that we first regulated for. 5G envisions having smaller and more numerous antenna placed around town. And so we as a town wanted to come up with a set of code provisions and a design manual that would address the new technology in a manner consistent with, of course, allowing those communication facilities to be installed within the limits of federal law and regulating or mitigating to the greatest extent possible the visual and other impacts that those new antenna will have when they do start to get installed around town. And so what this particular local law does, it amends our existing cellular tower regulations and code provisions, which can be found in chapters 201 and 207, and amends our design guidelines in the appendix to the code for those who are going to be installing these communication facilities, particularly 5G, but these antenna may be installed on buildings, may be installed on independent towers, may be installed on other structures. I think it might help, Supervisor, if I just briefly read from a portion of the local law regarding the purpose and intent of the local law. And so let me just read, this is from section 20741, which is being added to the code. The purpose of this section is to establish uniform standards for the siting, design, permitting, maintenance, and use of communication facilities in the town of Brighton. While the town recognizes the importance of communication facilities in providing high quality communication services to its residents, the town also recognizes that it has an obligation to protect public safety and to minimize the adverse effects of such facilities through the standards set forth in the following provisions. And then, of course, the law goes on to describe what those regulations are. I think that's a pretty good general introduction, Supervisor, and I don't know if you wanted me to get into further detail, or perhaps if you wanted to open the public hearing up to comments from the public and see where that takes us.
I think we will do that. The public hearing is now open for public input. I will note that a gentleman did just ask the question, how can the public comment on this? And because we did have the computer challenge that our website host had in being hacked. Ken, I'm going to suggest that we will keep this.
Let me address the question,
Yeah,
if I may, please.
if you would, perfect.
So the text of this local law was put on the website and published back on June 23rd, when this public hearing was first set, and has been available in the meeting minutes and agenda for the town board since June 23rd. So I believe that is approximately 3 months that this the text of this proposed local law has been available for public review. It is, of course, not only the town's preference, but New York law that where practical, we do post our agenda and matters on the website. Unfortunately, today it was not practical because the website had been hacked and was under a cyber attack, and so that was not possible. And so, yes, to answer the question that was asked, the public hearing is lawfully called, is lawfully taking place, and we welcome comments from the public who did take the opportunity to look at the town's website sometime over the last 3 months when this public law had been proposed and posted to the website.
And again, just to be clear, that it was not the town of Brighton's website that was hacked, or that is the subject of a cyber attack. It was the firm that hosts our website that was attacked. It's a firm that hosts municipal governmental websites in large numbers, and prevented us from uploading certain materials tonight. Is there anyone that would like to address the town board concerning this proposed local law at this time? If so, I would ask that you raise your hand. Raise your Zoom hand. Members of the town board, do any of you, well, Alexi has raised his hand, So I will recognize you, Alexi, because this is a public hearing. You must state your name and address for the record.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great, great. For my address, let me give you 3200 Elmwood Avenue. That's where my taxes go.
That is not, sir, please state your name. You are asking to speak on the record of a public hearing. This is a
Yes.
formal public hearing. Please state your name and address.
Okay. My name is Alexi. I don't feel comfortable stating my personal address because who knows what you guys will do with it. I don't know if you guys use a database to investigate people or if you guys.
Mr. Tetinoff, would you like to address this public hearing on the topic of the communications law?
I would, but you asked me a question, so I was responding to your question before I started to address this.
I'm gonna ask the town attorney. As to whether individuals must give their name and or address for the record in a public hearing.
Supervisor, I believe that Alexi Tetinoff, who is the speaker, who is presenting to the town, is known to us. I think that we can allow him to proceed.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Tetinoff.
Okay. So if you guys want to deny me, we can make case law. I'm happy to you know.
Mr. Tetinoff, we've just offered you the chance to speak on the proposed telecommunications law. Go ahead, please.
I was responding to your statement, and if that's not allowed, that's fine. Just tell me. So I did read this proposed law. I think you guys, it was 2021, about regulating the new communication facilities. And I was curious about the 10%. Why was 10%? I think it was 10% higher, or couldn't it be 10% higher than the existing design? Why that number was chosen? Why wouldn't something that would be, more technically, more in line with the technology versus kind of an arbitrary number chosen?
Do you have other comments? Mr. Tetinoff, you are now muted. Do you have other comments for the public hearing?
It's on mute.
You are muted.
There
you go.
After I can, so that was my question. I was trying to respond, and I muted myself because I wasn't speaking, so you guys wouldn't get any background noise. But then it seemed like I wasn't allowed to unmute myself. So my question is, there doesn't seem to be any technical reason as to why some of these numbers, some of this criteria is being used in this town ordinance, and I'm curious as to what the rationale for some of the criteria is.
Ken, would you like to
Sure,
address
I can
that?
address that. So there are restrictions in the Federal Telecommunications Act as to how much regulation and what limits we can impose. As the board knows, we hired outside counsel that focuses on telecommunications law. I will say that not only the town planner, Ramsey Boehner, and I, but also I believe the supervisor asked pretty much the same question that Mr. Tetenoff is asking.
Right.
Why can't we have something more specific? And what we were told by outside counsel is this is what is allowed under federal law, that we can regulate under federal law height, but only in comparison to what already exists. And that we wanted to make sure that we were enacting a code that went as far as we could in limiting height, but didn't violate federal law. And so based on the advice of outside counsel, that is why there is this 10% limit. That's the specific answer. And I can tell you, Mr. Tetenoff, you're asking the very same question that the supervisor asked, that I asked, that our town planner asked of our outside counsel.
There's no references to any federal statutes that I could see in the previous version of the agenda from a few months ago. There's a 41 CFR 1307B, but I don't see a reference in that section that would corroborate what you've just shared. So I'm curious about that, about what the relevant federal statutes, if those could be included in the town ordinance. It doesn't have to be an answer to me now, today, or I guess ever, but it would be beneficial to the town residents if there is correlating CFRs or Code of Federal Rules or regulations included in those sections. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any further questions or comments, Mr. Tetenoff?
I'm curious, did my voice give me away? Is that why you guys seem to know who I am?
You have spoken at a number of previous meetings, sir. Do you have any further comments on the proposed local law?
I don't see the need for limiting, adding additional regulations in the town of Brighton that are already covered by the federal regulations. So I'm curious as to what the need for this local Brighton ordinance is. Is this just to make it more restrictive and doesn't really accomplish much other than generates, dozens of pages of paperwork and additional costs to our town?
Would you like to answer that, Ken, or would you like me to?
No, I can respond to that as well. So the town code provisions go beyond federal law. They provide and fill in the gaps that exist in the federal regulations and federal law as it relates to regulating tower construction. There is some latitude that the federal regulations, the federal law allows to local governments to enact code provisions just as we are proposing here, if those local governments wish to, and if those local governments find value in investing in aesthetic qualities in their community and in protecting against the overdevelopment of wireless and other communication facilities in their towns. One good example that just comes to mind easily is there is nothing in the federal regulations, for example, that would stop these small 5G antenna from being placed on historic buildings or historic structures. And yet, the federal law does allow local governments to restrict and regulate and protect historic structures within the confines of the Telecommunications Act. So one of the provisions of the town code regulations that are being proposed today for adoption says that, for example, the HARP lamps, which are a landmark here, a historically protected landmark here in Brighton, cannot be used for the placement of 5G antenna, or at least if there is a proposal to place a 5G antenna on a historic structure like one of the HARP lamps, then that matter would go to the Historic Preservation Commission for the Historic Preservation Commission to make a determination as to whether the placement of that antenna on that landmark or historically designated structure would be consistent with the historic character of that structure. So that's one example. I don't want to go through the entire code and read each and every provision, but that is one example of some local regulation that is not provided at the federal level.
Since you brought up those HARP lamps, are they ever going to be converted to LED? They burn a lot of energy wastefully that could be done.
I'll let the supervisor handle this one.
I don't disagree with you at all on that, Mr. Tetanoff. We've been working with RG&E. RG&E owns, those. We've not been able to come to a deal, although there have been discussions in the past about purchasing the residential street light system. They are currently testing LED fixtures in a couple of HARP lamps in a neighborhood that has sufficient conduit and infrastructure to support LED lights. And we expect, if those tests are successful, that they will begin work converting some of those residential HARP lamps over to LED. I believe, Mike, correct me if we've gotten the updated information, we're hoping beginning next year.
That is correct, Supervisor. There are a couple lights. They actually have 2 lights out there they're looking at, and they're going to compare the results. And the latest we've heard from RG&E is sometime next year they're going to look at implementing the plan, or at least picking a lamp fixture that they're going to install.
It's a big project because they are, in most neighborhoods in the town that have HARP lamps, going to have to install new conduit and new ballasts and whatever. I'm not an electrical engineer, and I'm choosing not to play one on TV. So there's going to be some significant work that RG&E will have to do in order to upgrade the system. They know it is a high priority for us. They also know that it is important to maintain the HARP lamps as a landmark. So yes, that is a project we expect going forward, hopefully starting next year, but it will take several years to complete.
It sounds like a very expensive project when, relatively LED lights are very cost competitive just on the purchase these days, and they're 10 times cheaper to operate, if not more, if not even cheaper than 10 times cheaper to operate. So we've been wasting a lot of money the last 5 or 7 years that these LEDs have been very affordable to operate. And so you guys just haven't been able to get a deal done to save.
No, that's actually not at all true, Mr. Tetanoff. We have been working with RG&E. We do not own the system, and therefore, although we meet with them regularly, they are well aware that this is a project. They're a regulated organization. All of their activities are, at least most of their activities are regulated through the Public Service Commission. And this is not like, as you correctly point out, it is a significant project. It will save significant operating costs. And we have strongly encouraged them to move forward with the project. We look forward to them doing so.
We pay the
I
bill.
just wanted
for-
to, let me just,
like-
yes, let me just clarify too, Mr. Tetanoff, since you asked earlier. When you came on, your camera was on. Your image was visible here on the screen, and I did recognize you. So in case you question how it was that I knew that that was you, that is one more reason that I knew that was you. It will reduce electrical operating costs, both in terms of using less electricity and replacing bulbs less frequently. Do you have any other comments concerning the proposed telecommunications law? We've sort of moved afield from the thrust of that law here.
Yes, the attorney commented about the harp lamps as part of it, and that's what I was responding to. You guys moved the subject abroad. The last point was we residents pay that super high electric bill for these lamps, as far as I know.
Residents, thank you. And Heather, one of our ASL interpreters, has raised her hand. Do our interpreters need a break here? I believe Mr. Tetanoff has finished his testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board concerning this proposed local law? Hearing, yes, Councilmember Werner.
I was expecting you to say, if any members of the board have comments. In reviewing it, I see the three different approaches for the antennas. And I don't know whether this more properly goes to Ramsey or not, but the three different types of the small communications facilities, the non-tower facilities, and then of course the tower-based communications. Do we have a history or any kind of experience in other towns where the 5G network has been deployed as to what we might anticipate to be the primary source or the relative number of these antenna facilities to serve the town? I see a lot of discussion and restriction regarding small communications facilities. Will that be the primary mode of transmission?
Ken?
Yeah, so as you know, Councilmember Werner, 5G is a relatively new technology. The rollout is in process. We have not received applications yet in the town of Brighton. That's why we wanted to get these new code provisions on the books. What we anticipate is that they will come in the form of mostly small communication facilities, or they'll fall under that category.
Can I just stop for a moment, because both of our ASL interpreters have raised their hand, and would you like us to take a break for you for a couple minutes? Oh.
No, okay. Hi, this is Heather, one of the interpreters. The
Hi,
problem
Heather.
is that both my mic and my video and the chat are disabled for me, so the interpreters just need to switch. So if someone could re-enable my ability to turn on my camera, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, and I couldn't talk to say, because Heather was texting me to say that, so, and I couldn't message either, so we couldn't switch. But we're fine to keep going. We just needed the ability to turn it back on. That's all.
Okay. So are you, because I want to make sure you can switch back and forth as needed.
We didn't have a problem at the beginning, so I'm not sure if the settings were changed recently. I don't know if Heather, it seems like her camera, she still can't turn it on.
Yeah, Bridget, is there? We'll get a little troubleshooting.
Sorry, I
effort here.
just made Heather a co-host, so she should be able to do things now.
She said she's not a co-host yet.
Okay,
now I see it.
should go
Yeah.
through now.
There she
Okay,
is.
great,
There
thank you.
she is.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. And Ken, sorry to tie you up in mid-sentence there.
No worries. Small communication facilities is what we'll primarily see. The number of antenna needed to properly place a 5G network depends upon the environment they're placed in. The more trees, the more antenna. We have a lot of trees, depending on the neighborhood. So you could see antenna very, very frequent, placed 500 feet apart in a neighborhood to get adequate coverage, or spread out much further. So we do not have the experience that you were asking about, Councilmember Warner, to know what we're going to be seeing. What we do have is the experience of our outside counsel in guiding us through the drafting of these regulations and code provisions. And most importantly, they are the same attorneys who have drafted several of the other Monroe County towns' telecommunication 5G regulations. So there is some experience base there. We'll learn as we go. And if we learn that we have missed the mark and are not accomplishing what we wish to accomplish, we will be coming back to you to ask that the code be further amended.
And I think it is very important that we have this code available to us so that we can review and the planning board can participate in the review of the intended facilities as to aesthetics and what other alternatives there might be, because this could have a significant impact on the town. And I'm very pleased that we have this statute here available to us, and council's done an excellent job.
Any other comments, either from members of the public or from town board members? Hearing none. Ken, is it your recommendation that I close the public hearing?
Yes. That was me talking in a high-pitched voice. Yes, Supervisor, I would recommend that, and there is a resolution for consideration to adopt the local law.
Thank you. Then I declare this public hearing to be closed, and I will ask if any of the board members would like to offer the resolution that you have in your packet. Obviously, we could hold it, but we also, I think we have the opportunity to take action tonight, should you so choose.
Bill, go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead, Chris.
In looking at the resolution, Bill, I move that that we receive and file the planning board report to amend the statute, and that the town board as the lead agency for the seeker review be accepted, and that the town adopt the proposed local law amending this chapter, all in accordance with the resolution before us.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. We will move on to communications. Can I have a motion to receive and file the communications?
So moved. Robin.
Can I have a second, please?
Second, Christine.
We have 4 items tonight. One from Tom Greiner, raising, Mr. Greiner, you'll recall a few months ago, raised a concern with the bus loop that is very, very close to the city line on Blossom Road. It is just in the city, an RTS bus loop. The County Director of Transportation responded to his first concern, and he's raised a different concern, a sanitary concern. And we'll, that letter is addressed to Bill Carpenter, the CEO of RTS, but we were copied in on it. We also have a communication from Elliot Auerbach, the Deputy Controller from the Office of the State Controller, addressing the financial impact of the transfer of the West Brighton Fire Protection District to the Henrietta Fire District. And I believe that the calculations that are in that letter are part of the calculations that the Finance Director, Paula Parker, used in making the determination that our budget, our tentative budget, meets the tax cap, does not exceed the tax cap. We also have a wonderful letter from a resident of Montpelier Circle who had some very nice things to say about her high school class had a reunion picnic at Buckland Park, and although she only knows his first name, we know, we all know Tony, and Tony helped one of the folks there who had lost their keys. So great work. Thank you, Tony. And finally, we have a resident who is concerned that the town hall parking lot, Tony Bernardo, by the way, I was blanking on his name for a moment as well, Tony Bernardo. 2 thumbs up, Tony. Someone who raised a concern about town hall parking lot needing paving. I couldn't agree with you more, Ms. Ernest. And that is something that we do have in our capital improvement plan that we hope to be able to do here going forward. So one more reason, yes, we do need to repave this parking lot. Any further comments or questions about any of these letters? We have a motion to receive and file them. If there's nothing further, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Committee reports, community services, Robin.
Thank you, Bill. And I will preface my report by saying that I am having a few problems with connection. So I hope not to go dark during this committee report.
So maybe it is a good thing that I started talking about the recreation survey.
Right. Yes. So I'm glad that is out there. But the Community Services Committee met on Tuesday, September 14th, excuse me, a special day. And among the items we discussed were under continuing business, park issues. Our park superintendent, Matt Beeman, noted that park maintenance is ongoing. In particular, the Corbett's Glen Trail maintenance is underway and moving forward. There is a heavy athletic field usage planned for throughout the fall. And also we had a discussion of invasive species along the Brickyard Trail, in particular, Phragmites are invasive.
Yes, Robin does seem to have frozen.
Process of replacing parking lot lights at Buckland. Oh, I see that
We hear you again. You did
Okay.
freeze for a moment, but you're back.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Park staff is replacing parking lot lights at Buckland with energy efficient LEDs. We're also working towards performing some court surface repair at Buckland Park in anticipation of resurfacing the courts in 2022. We have gotten some communications in that regard, and when finished, these courts dual lined for both tennis and pickleball. Finally, there was a discussion of the Veterans Luncheon for 2021 and possible alternate options than the usual venue of Carmen Clark Lodge at Barton Town Park in order to hold that event safely. Then in terms of recreation programs, there was discussion of fall programs starting, including the after-school program now convening at Council Rock Primary School. In addition to that, Halloween event planning is underway. The trunk or treat will return this year for even more fun. There was also discussion of the Brighton Seniors program, including the grab and go lunch program. And the potential for becoming a congregate meal site with Monroe County Office for the Aging. Our recreation and parks feasibility study was discussed. The community survey went live this week. The link to the survey may be found on the town website, as Bill noted earlier. And I will also note that paper surveys will be available next week at the Brighton Town Hall, Brighton Memorial Library, Brighton Recreation, and other identified organizations and groups.
And actually, SWBR was dropping them off today. We have them now here, at least in Town Hall.
Great, so already available in paper form for those who want them at those locations. And we do invite and encourage all members of the Brighton community to participate in this very important survey and provide much needed input on the topic of recreation in our community. In update to our winter farmers market, there has been additional funding secured for continued development. Planning is underway for the next phase, that is phase 3 of the project, which will involve site development. An update to our Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advisory Committee or board. The department had a presentation to department heads took place on September 13th. There was an exchange of ideas and next step between department heads and the committee. This will be an ongoing conversation along with the sharing of information. And there was a discussion of that presentation and feedback from our Parks and Recreation department heads during the Community Services Committee meeting. An update to Community Choice.
I heard Robin, I was just beginning to talk about community choice aggregation, I believe. Oh, you're muted now, Robin.
I don't know where we left off. So
you were just starting to talk about community choice aggregation.
Okay, thank you, and I apologize.
One of our favorite topics.
Yes, it is one of our favorite topics, and so the town board passed the enabling law to implement opt-out community distributed generation or community solar at our August 25th meeting. The next steps involve our administrator, Dual Assets, and Rocktricity, our local coordinator, going out to bid. Because of limited community solar credit availability, we'll work with town staff regarding the use of census tract data to create a target group for the first phase of adoption. There was discussion of ongoing billing concerns and responding to that, those issues, and also discussion of additional educational and community discussions to clear up some of that confusion. we certainly don't want residents to opt out due to misinformation. An update to our clean energy community priority action items. The benchmarking requirements have been met in that regard, and we'll be seeking the commensurate credit from NYSERDA for that action item. There was also a discussion of New York State Stretch Energy Code and deadlines for implementation, as well as the potential for Josh Stack and Mike Dwayne to meet with our town attorney and planning department just to gather greater clarification regarding the availability of training and how to move ahead with lingering questions and concerns about implementation. An update to Hopper, the shared cycling program. The 12 corner station was replanted with just bikes, and the scooters have been removed, and I do see people making use of those bikes. The town hall station had not been installed. I haven't been by there, and still no bikes at town hall. We're not sure why. So the potential does exist for additional locations next year, and there was a discussion of potential locations and some of the challenges that we face in this initial year of implementation of the program with Hopper. But we will be reviewing the metrics and hopefully refine things in future years. We also had some discussion of the development of a path at Persimmon Park. And along those lines, there is the additional signage at Howland, and the staff is assessing the viability of a mown grass path in terms of maintenance. Finally, in discussion of the Sustainability Oversight Committee's letter regarding our sustainability funds, which were acquired through the implementation of community solar in our community. There was a discussion of the letter that was of recommendations that was submitted by the SOC and the potential for additional EV stations being added is one of the first priority items. Also, other potential projects, including shifting the focus from tree canopy and planting to collaboration with the Conservation Board about the continuing mapping of trees in the community. Also, there was a discussion of additional funds availability for sustainability work, and also some of the tree planting that has occurred in the community. In terms of upcoming events, we have the Brighton Police Department Rabies Clinic coming up quickly on Saturday, October 2nd from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. That will be at the Brighton Town Hall Public Safety Wing, 2300 Elmwood Avenue. We also have our ever popular semi-annual electronics recycling and secure document shredding event that will occur at the Brighton Highway Department, 1941 Elmwood Avenue on Saturday, October 9th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. And also our semi-annual DEA pharmaceutical take-back event will occur at the Brighton Town Hall Public Safety Wing, 2300 Elmwood Avenue on Saturday, October 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that is the same day that our drive-through trunk or treat will reprise itself. That's on at Brighton Town Hall, again in the Public Safety Wing on Saturday, October 23rd from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. The next meeting of the Community Services Committee will be on Wednesday, October 20th at 9:30 a.m. at the Brookside Recreation Center. We do ask, while of course all members of the public are welcome, we do ask that you just give us a call at the Recreation Department to let us know so that we can observe safe COVID protocols. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Jason, Finance.
Thanks, Bill. The Finance and Administrative Services Committee met last Tuesday, September 14th. Each of the items that were discussed in committee appear on tonight's agenda and will be discussed and voted on in further detail. In addition, the committee was briefed by Finance Director Paula Parker regarding the 2022 budget and discussed specific areas of reduction and other issues that could affect the budget numbers, including the calculation that we received in correspondence from the State Comptroller's Office regarding the savings to be anticipated by the consolidation of the West Brighton Fire Protection District over into the Henrietta Fire District. That the preliminary budget was discussed in detail, of course, in the supervisor's message at the beginning of our meeting, and we will have our 2 public hearings in October to review the budget in further detail. Our next meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 5th. We'll meet at 3:30 in the afternoon in the main auditorium at Town Hall, and the public is invited to attend.
Thank you, Jason. Christine, Public Safety.
The Public Safety Committee met last Tuesday, September 14th. In networking, Brighton Volunteer Ambulance shared that they have responded to a total of 660 requests for service throughout the month of, here we say June, I believe it was August, with a total of 504 being within the Brighton Ambulance District and 276 being confirmed Brighton residents. A total of 154 requests for mutual aid were received for surrounding ambulance districts. And a total of the total Brighton Volunteer Ambulance requests for service through August 31st of this year is 4,577. And that is an increase of 18.2% over 2020. Code 32 policy has been in effect since August 20th of this year. And between August 20th and August 31st, it was applied on 14 occasions. Of those occasions, in 6 instances, BVA was able to cover calls within Brighton's district that otherwise would have been dropped, showing that there's an efficacy of 43% thus far. So they are focusing, providing service to the town of Brighton and assisting outside of the town only when it won't impact residents negatively. Brighton Fire Department reports 1,533 calls year to date. It's approximately 159 calls more than last year, and they anticipate a significant increase in calls as compared to 2019. Not 2020, that was an outlier year, but they're looking, their benchmark is 2019 at this point. Public Works reports that they are currently completing the paving program. The remaining roads to be paved are Elmwood Road, Templeton Road, and the Ashbourne Hillside intersection. And the Highway Department anticipates that this work will be completed by the end of October. The Highway Department participated in the Public Safety Day at the Brighton Farmers Market this past Sunday. They brought one of the gigantic shiny plow trucks along with the driver to present at the event. Somewhat tongue-in-cheek at the meeting, but also with a serious intent. It was suggested that Public Safety talk a bit, that Public Works talk at the Public Safety Day about the importance of keeping your yard debris out of the roadway, because that is a particular public safety issue. They are thinking about other ways of reminding folks in the future, but that was a good time was had by all at Public Safety Day. Brighton Police Department has written 22 tickets since the beginning of the school year in the 12 Corners area, as we heard earlier this evening. The tickets consist of violations regarding cell phone use and illegal right turns on red primarily. Can't emphasize enough, be patient and be aware when you're going through 12 Corners during school drop off and end of day time, especially in the mornings though. It's a little frenetic around there. Grant funding has been obtained by the department to allow the additional police presence at 12 Corners. And the BPD is aware of some traffic issues at the Indian Landing Elementary School as well in the Penfield School District. And they'll continue to monitor that area for traffic violations as well. No report from the Rochester Fire Department. Town council members did bring up a couple matters. One is the question of the sidewalk along East Avenue near Allen's Creek School in the Pittsford School District. Right now, there is a break in the connection along that side of East Avenue. It is our understanding that we are likely to receive grant funding to complete that gap in the sidewalk. These things don't move quickly, but it's on the horizon.
Yes, it is.
And patience will pay off. Residents have reported that vehicles are not stopping at crosswalks, particularly some of our new mid-block crossings. It was suggested that reflective strips could be placed on the signs that delineate the crosswalk areas. You may have seen those in some other municipalities. They just add a little more reflection. Commissioner of Public Works did indicate that the reflective stripes can be installed. However, we do seem to have an abundance of appropriate signage to warn drivers of the pedestrian crossings. We need to work on educating drivers that pedestrians have the right of way in the crosswalk. And frankly, in a conflict between pedestrian and driver, the pedestrian never wins, and drivers need to recognize the responsibility that they have for the safety and welfare of others outside of their vehicles. We touched on investigating the road scramble option at 12 Corners. Again, 12 Corners is the center of everything this evening. The Sustainability Oversight Committee has previously submitted a letter to the New York State Department of Transportation with this suggestion. New York State DOT does not recommend a road scramble. A copy of the letter is attached to the minutes of the meeting and can be found on the town website when we can get to the town website again. In old business, we touched on traffic safety at Elmwood. David and we are awaiting some updates on the results of grant funding for the cycle track on Elmwood Avenue and the potential for adding additional safety controls in that project. The request for no parking on Schilling Road and in the roundabout turnaround areas, working with resident Wendy Gonzalez to bring together neighbors to explore some ways to encourage people not to park on the roundabouts. It's just not an appropriate place for parking. In the matter of a children at play sign in Brittany Circle, we thought a solution had been found thanks to some good homework by resident Heo Park. A 15-mile-an-hour and a sharp turn arrow sign seemed to be the answer. Commissioner Guyon, in researching further, realized that chevron signs need to be added as well. Adding to visual clutter and probably not to the liking of the neighbors. So we're going back to the drawing board on that. But in the meantime, on residential streets, keep an eye out for children, keep an eye out for pedestrians and dogs, and don't speed. There can't be anything that important that you need to get to that quick. And that is basically all for that committee report. The committee meets next on Tuesday, October 12th at 8 in the morning in Town Hall. As the others have stated, if you wish to attend the meeting, please do contact Town Hall to let us know that you'll be there and follow safety, COVID safety practices.
Thank you, Christine. And just so the public can be clear, you should be able to access our webpage. Right now, the one issue is inability for us to upload materials to that web page. So, but hopefully the public can at least access it. Finally, Public Works, Chris.
Thanks, Bill. Public Works has not met since our last town board meeting. However, some of the high points of what's happening in the Public Works Department is the construction or reconstruction of the Ashbourne intersection, which is right around the corner from my home here. I'm really pleased to see it. That's something we've had to put off for many seasons, given our budgetary restrictions. And the construction signs are going to remain in place there, and it's closed during construction. But we're looking forward to that being completed. Town staff has now ended the summer hours, is now working a standard 5-day, 8-hour day cycle again. And we, of course, are starting into our fall leaf pickup, but we've still got a few weeks or maybe month or more before we look at that. As Christine said, Elmore, the road paving is anticipated hopefully on Friday, weather permitting, depending on whether the rain will stop. And also that the Brighton High School Homecoming Parade is coming up on Saturday, October the 2nd. And Elmwood Avenue and Winton Road at 12 Corners will be closed from 10 to 2 on that day. And our next meeting of the Public Works Committee will be October the 5th, which is the first Tuesday of the month at 9:00 a.m. at Town Hall.
Thanks, Chris. We'll move on then to new business. Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, Bill, earlier today, I reviewed claims totaling $1,625,508.03. Notable claims include to the city of Rochester, the amount of $384,360, representing payment for fourth quarter 2021 fire protection services for the West Brighton Fire Protection District. Also to M&T Bank in the amount of $33,935.73, representing principal and interest for Elmwood Avenue Relief Sewer Project Phase 2, and that was adjusted for a subsidy received through the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation. Also to the New York State Municipal Workers' Compensation Insurance, the amount of $49,205.50, representing payment for fourth quarter 2021 for workers' compensation insurance coverage for employees per contracted pricing. Also to Plant Concepts, the amount of $19,304, representing payment for July and August 2021 Monroe Avenue GIGP maintenance and mowing in various parks locations per contract. And finally, to the Brighton Central School District, the amount of $57,916.79, representing rental for the Brookside facility for the year 2020, which is based on 1/3 of maintenance costs plus a pro rata amortization of capital improvements at that facility. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second, Robin.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Christine.
Yes, the next matter seeks to award a bid contract to Northeastern Rescue Vehicles for the purchase of a 2021 Deemers Type 2 Sprinter ambulance for an amount not to exceed $102,800 and approve the transfer of $32,800 from fund balance to the Emergency Response Vehicles account for the purchase of said vehicle. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second, Chris.
Although this price is an increase somewhat over the price of the last vehicle, obviously everybody's familiar with procurement issues as they relate to vehicles these days, and it is still below the imputed 105,000. We're on the 18-month purchase cycle. We're submitting 70,000 each year into the reserve fund to purchase these. So that would work out to 105 every 18 months. So we're within that estimated range, and this will give them a much needed vehicle, although we don't know exactly how long it's going to take to get it delivered.
And Bill, that still compares very favorably to what we were spending previously for the big box ambulance alternative, which as
It's
I
about two-
recall were 130,000.
And even more than that, more like, I don't know, had they gotten as high as 150 plus, I think, Paula, I'm trying to
Today's
remember.
numbers.
Big savings. So yes, absolutely.
And operating costs are much lower.
Yep,
so.
better mileage.
Yep. And I'll add too that these narrower body vehicles are much safer on our narrow residential streets. The big boxes struggle to get by sometimes. So we're much better off all the way around with these vehicles.
Absolutely. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, can we have a vote on the purchase of the ambulance?
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing.
Aye. Robin?
Certainly, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to amend the contract with Insight Architecture for Phase 1 and 2 design and construction administration of the Winter Farmers Market to include Phase 3 design and construction administration in an amount not to exceed $143,800. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing.
Aye. Christine?
Good thing I left that unmuted. The next matter seeks to approve the appointment of Sharon Hendrickson to the position of Office Clerk 3 in the Police Department. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second. Jason.
Chief, I know this is a position we've wanted to try to fill. Any comments on this?
No, as you know, we've had difficulty filling this entry-level position. It's sorely needed in our record staff to get them caught up. And with your approval, I hope to start her this Monday and get her right to work.
Then let's get right to work and we'll take a vote on this unless there's any further discussion. Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing.
Aye. Chris?
Bill, the next item is to approve the promotion of Carl Jones to the position of Senior Motor Equipment Operator in the public. Move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second, Robin.
Thanks, Robin. Mike, anything you want to say?
Just that, we interviewed 5 candidates for the position. I'm going to slip up and call Carl Pete because we call Carl Pete Jones all the time. So
You had us all confused at that last committee meeting.
But he's an outstanding candidate. Glad to see him get promoted if the board sees that, approves this promotion tonight.
Great. Further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing.
Aye. Jason?
Yes. The next matter seeks to set public hearings for the 2022 town and special district budgets, charges, and assessment rolls. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second, Chris.
And this will be, these will be 2 separate sets of 2 public hearings each. 2 public hearings on the budget, 2 public hearings on the special districts and assessment rolls at our 2 meetings in the month of October. Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
You were muted there, Robin. I know that was the nod. There we go.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing.
Aye, and Jason, why don't you do the next one as well?
I'm muted. I had that message pop up at me, so. Next matter seeks to set the public hearing for authorization to adopt a budget commencing January 1, 2022 that may exceed the tax cap. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second,
Chris. Thanks, Chris. This would be a public hearing on a local law. Now, why are we doing this? When my budget message indicated that this budget actually complies with the tax cap, and it does. However, because in particular we have the unusual circumstance of the fire protection district transaction, which has not closed yet. We really are doing this as a precaution. There's also the possibility, although we think everybody in the state with a relevant interest in it has approved of the tax calculation that was described earlier in the communication and by our finance director. We're really setting this potential public hearing as a precaution in case there is something that changes. We don't think it will, but just in case the consequences of adopting a budget that is actually determined to go over the tax cap are pretty serious if you do not adopt such a local law. So we will set this public hearing. I hope we won't need to hold it. I hope we won't need to actually adopt such a local law, but we should know that better by the time October 1st rolls around. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that item? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Chris.
Bill, let's see, next item is to, boy, I lost track. Special district.
Stantec. No, the Stantec.
Stantec, excuse me. Next item is to authorize the supervisor to amend the contract with Stantec for a traffic impact study for the University of Rochester South Campus institutional plan development for an amount not to exceed $15,806, and to receive and file a letter of John Hartley to Mike Guyon regarding that study, dated August 31, 2002. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second, Robin.
This relates, as Chris referenced, to the approval made several years ago to rezone University of Rochester's land, the so-called South Campus, as an institutional planned district, which has some ongoing obligations to provide traffic studies. And this would amend the contract with Stantec to do that. Mike or Ken, I think Mike, am I correct that this is money that would be reimbursed by the university?
Yeah, exactly, Bill. We actually already have the money. We've received
Even better
payment by the U of R, so we do have the money. I think it's in the general fund, Paula, or a reserve fund.
It's in our community fund, where it is in a place all by itself. We have to amend the budget and bring that money in.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to take these various actions. Further discussion on that? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Jason.
Yes, Bill, the next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to amend the amenity agreement with DeMarco Group for the 1925 South Clinton Avenue project by extending the deadline by which the amenity sidewalks be completed to June 30th, 2022. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
When the original incentive zoning approval was given for the project that now includes the Doodlebugs and will ultimately include additional commercial development there on South Clinton, one of the amenities, and we've talked about these amenities a lot, incentive zoning projects are one of the most important ways we build sidewalks and trails in the town of Brighton. Sidewalks and trails are vital to our community's future. They connect neighborhoods, they connect people. And in this case, sidewalks were authorized in the Lockdeville area. They were authorized along South Clinton itself, and they were authorized on Elmwood Avenue. Everybody felt it was very important, particularly important, to get the Elmwood Avenue sidewalks completed before the start of the school year, because so many kids use those sidewalks coming from neighborhoods, Cobb Terrace, Hemingway, and further to the west along Elmwood Avenue. But at the same time, the whole Rochester area is facing, we keep talking about COVID dislocations. It's hard to hire staff. And with respect to concrete in particular, the large Amazon project on the west side has been using up most of the concrete that's able to be produced in the Rochester area right now. So this was an understanding that has been reduced to an agreement under which the DeMarco Group agreed to finish the Elmwood sidewalks before the start of the school year. They did, and in fact, it was a full week in advance, and the reviews have been great. The remaining sidewalks as part of that project will now be completed by June 30th. So all the sidewalks are still going to get built. This just rejiggers the schedule a little bit. We have a motion and a second on that amendment. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Jason, again.
Yes, the next matter seeks to approve the certificate of bonding for the collection of taxes. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second, Robin.
This is something that is done every year, required by law. Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Chris.
Bill, the next item is to approve the Daily Record as the official newspaper for the town. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second.
We've talked a lot about official newspapers lately. It is our understanding that the Brighton Pittsford Post is about to print no more. They've been the official newspaper for many, many years. We held a special meeting recently for the purpose of addressing some, not only that issue, but also some issues with a legal notice that, although it was properly submitted, wasn't entirely clear whether the Post had properly printed it. So we made sure that it was also published in the Democrat Chronicle. However, legal notices in that paper are very, very expensive. So it is our recommendation that, having done that and having compared prices, that we go forward using the Daily Record as an official newspaper. The Daily Record, of course, is the sort of the newspaper of record in the legal community, but also in the real estate community here in the Rochester area. We have a motion and a second on that. Any further discussion?
Well, Supervisor, I'll just put a finer point on, I know you kind of gave them a little bit of leeway and grace there, but they failed. Messenger Post, it's one of those you had one job situations. And the post that normally goes to Brighton, Henrietta, Pittsford was delivered to Arundecoit, Webster, and Penfield. Several days late, when we received the Arundecoit, Webster, and Penfield Post, So while we did submit it, and they did print it, they didn't manage to mail it correctly. So that is why we had that emergency meeting to switch over to the DNC. Just as an example for the board and for the residents, I did get there was another notice regarding a bonding matter that we need to send out shortly, an estoppel notice. And for a notice that was less than $125 in the Brighton Pittsford Post earlier this summer, I was given a quote of $1,250 from the Democrat and Chronicle. So that is why I've submitted this memo, and we're recommending that we do the record. A couple are just quick quotes that I gotten. There was an item that we did, bond resolution. It was $300, $2 in the Post. The Daily Record would have charged us $288. And then my school tax notices were about $15 cheaper as well. So less, we'll spend even less than we had in the past. And they do not nickel and dime us on our affidavits of publication either, which is always a frustration. There were times our notices were less than $20, and then they would charge us $25 to give us a affidavit of publication, which was always maddening.
It is indeed. Okay, good. Further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeBonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Robin, the last item of new business, please.
Certainly. The next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to extend the contract with FoodLink for the grab and go weekly meal program for seniors. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second.
As you know, we've really focused on the grab and go weekly meal program for our seniors during the COVID pandemic. It's an opportunity, it's a drive-up opportunity. Many of you have seen it over at Brookside when you've been over there for perhaps a community services committee meeting. Emily Kelsey and her team do a great job. Folks have been driving through, getting a lunch. It's not quite the same as the wonderful gatherings that the seniors did on Tuesdays in person in pre-COVID times. They really want to get back to those, but they also really value having these grab and go meals. They're an important part of not only nutrition, but also just an opportunity to check up on all of our the wonderful seniors that participate in senior programming to make sure that they're doing okay. We've got a lot of irons in the fire in terms of, congregate meal programs and the like going forward. But for now, this is our primary senior lunch program. FoodLink does a great job at a wonderful price. So I know Becky recommends this very strongly. And if there's no further comments, why don't we, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeBonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, can I have a motion to receive and file the August expense and revenue reports?
So moved.
Second.
We will, of course, after we finish with the September reports, Paula will make that third quarter update for us. But Dan, if you would please call the roll on the motion to receive and file the August reports.
Councilmember DeBonzio.
Aye.
Councilmember Werner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt.
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado.
Aye.
Supervisor Maley.
Aye. Now I know this is going to surprise you, but let's talk about lawn and garden debris pickup for a moment. In a month or so, we're going to be transitioning over to leaf pickup. But for now, as was mentioned earlier, we're back on a 5-day-a-week, 8-hour-a-day schedule, mostly because daylight is getting shorter and shorter. But remember, we're going to say it over and over. please containerize your debris where you can, and particularly where you have small quantities. Please containerize it in trash cans, you know, some kind of refuse bin, or in those big brown paper bags you can get at the hardware store. Pickup of lawn and garden debris is much more efficient when small quantities are containerized. It takes a lot of mobilization for the bulk crews to pick up small parcels. You heard at the, I think it was at the Public Works Committee, how much more efficient our crews have been this summer at picking up debris, how many more times they've been through town. A big part of that has been our push to make sure that small quantities of debris go into the containers. To enforce that, as you know, and as we've heard some concerns from, you know, some neighborhoods, the highway department has begun leaving notices at homes that leave small amounts that should be containerized, that leave them just out by the curb, advising them that they won't be able to pick them up, that they need to be containerized, and we will continue to do that. We don't mean to be tough guys or anything else, but it dramatically has improved our efficiency. Same thing in the fall. If you've got, you know, we know that leaves come down in huge volumes, and we know most of the time we do have to rake them out or blow them out in bulk. But if you have small quantities and you can put them in containers, they'll get picked up quicker, and your bulk leaves will get picked up quicker if you can put the small quantities in containers. Again, as always, don't put them in the street. Don't put them on the sidewalk. Put them on the tree lawn if you have one between your sidewalk and the pavement. If you don't have a sidewalk, put them on the grass close to the street. But do not pile them, please, in the street. We're going to get some heavy rain again the next day or two. Debris in the street can cause drainage issues. They can clog up the storm drains. They can cause street neighborhood flooding. And they're also a safety issue for cyclists in particular, but also for motorists, for pedestrians. Kids will sometimes play in leaf piles in the street, and I don't even want to think about what can happen there. So please don't leave leaf piles or debris pile in the street. As always, check the town's website for our maps to see where our bulk pickup crews and our containerized pickup crews will be headed in the next couple days. One final note, we're still mowing grass a little bit longer. We do not pick up grass clippings. If you mow yourself, great. If your landscaper mows them, please make sure they understand they should leave them on the grass as nutrients for your lawn. It'll make your lawn greener. That's all I have. Thank you very much. Matters of the town attorney, Ken.
Thank you, Bill. I did ask prior to the meeting that you include one matter for executive session involving litigation relating to the Westfall Medical Office project that was approved by the planning board. I'm now asking that we add a second matter to the executive session relating to litigation regarding the West Brighton Fire Protection District.
All right, thank you. We will do that in a moment.
And
Any
I
other?
have circulated, just so you know, I don't know if anyone's gotten a chance to check their email, but I have circulated a resolution for that second matter as well. So you should have it in your inbox of your email. And Mr. DePonzio, I was only successful in sending it to your law firm email. I thought I remembered, but I did not remember
I remember the 420.
420. I remembered the 420.
That's okay, because if it's not a Google Doc, I got it. So if it's just a plain old regular attachment, that's
Yes,
great.
the
Google
plain
Docs, that
old
doesn't
Word
like mine.
doc. Yeah. Okay, good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Dan, matters of the town clerk. We're getting punchy. It's getting late.
Just a quick reminder, full school tax payments without interest due next Friday. So still plenty of time. You know, the drop boxes are still in effect. So the rear of the building, entrance number 9 is outside, open 24/7. And the indoor one is in the police department lobby, which is open from 8 to 6, Monday through Friday. Maybe a little slow if you try to come in next week. With the restrictions in the building, you know, at times in the past we'd have 5 people working the counter at once. We can now only have 3. And that is already shown at the installment due date, showed to slow things down a bit. So yes, we miss seeing folks, just like folks miss coming in. But if you're in a hurry, you know, again, those drop boxes are they're great.
You know, Dan, it's a real testament to how much people appreciate your service. And I'll also say the service in the assessor's office, because I've heard both from you and from Town Assessor Sue Wentworth how much folks appreciate being able to come back in, whether it's pay their taxes in person or address, you know, senior exemptions or other exemptions in the assessor's office. People really appreciate walking in, seeing your friendly faces, even if they are masked. But the interaction means a lot to them, and that, again, speaks volumes about the service you provide to our residents. So thank you for that. Matters of the town board.
Bill, if I might, and very quickly here, in scanning through the budget and being familiar with the budget, and continue to be impressed with how well we're doing. And I know with the state review came through very positively. So congratulations, Paula. Thanks very much. But you know, just a quick thumbnail based upon the charts and so forth, which I do recommend people look at. But that of our revenues, again, we get a $27 million budget. Our revenues come about 60% from real estate taxes and 20% from sales tax and mortgage taxes. These are just gross numbers. And our expenditures, a third of that goes out for police service. About 25% goes to highway. And then we've got the other important services, public works and so forth as well. But those are the real large items in the library, et cetera. But keeping in mind that the town is 20% tax exempt. So we have to do all the rest based upon our non-exempt asset base, tax base. And but despite the fact that we've got 20%, which is tax exempt, both that includes government and schools and charitable institutions, churches, et cetera. Nonetheless, we get $500,000 or $470-some thousand from pilots, from contribution from tax exempt entities that we have, you know, imposed upon them an expectation that they contribute to the town services that they consume, and particularly the U of R has been very good about responding to that request. So pilots bring in a significant portion of our budget as well. So all in all, you know, this budget continues to be, I believe, based upon the cost and the services we get in this town, a bargain. Now, everyone feels like there's a terrible tax burden in the town of Brighton, and we have superlative schools. But please, the town board focuses on our town services. And I think the town does a great job for the money.
Thanks, Chris. Any other matters of the board? Then can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss those 2 matters of litigation?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt, I'll come back.
Oh,
unfrozen. Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye. Sorry about that.
that's all right. Technology. Aye. Thank you, everybody. I don't anticipate we'll be coming back into open session after the executive session. The next board meeting will be Wednesday, October 13th at 7 p.m. Again, that's going to be on Zoom. We will be holding our first of 2 budget hearings that night. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you. Stay safe.